I'm Daniel Levine, and this is the Bio Report.
Whether it's capturing the imagination of a venture capitalist, enticing a potential partner, or attracting talent, CEOs need to be able to tell their company stories effectively. In his new book, Winners Have a Story, Giuseppe Marzio discusses how CEOs can turn complex science and technology into compelling tales. Marzio, who worked as a scientist in biopharma before launching a communications agency, comes to his interest in storytelling honestly. Growing up with a love for the cinema, he had dreams of becoming a filmmaker and has studied the structure of stories. We spoke to Marzio, founder of the communications agency Chiaro, about his new book, why a good pitch shares a common structure with novels and movies, and why a company's strategy and story are inextricably linked. Giuseppe, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Danny, for having me. It's a privilege.
We're going to talk about your new book, Winners Have a Story, Storytelling, and why it matters for the life science executives. Before we do that, though, I'd like to start with you. How did you go from having a PhD in molecular genetics and doing research for biopharmaceutical companies to founding a communications agency?
It all started 6 years ago in New York City, where I had a life-changing experience. But before that, let me take a step back. I don't know if you remember any of your childhood dreams, Danny. I remember one dream in particular, and I always wanted to be a movie director. Yeah, like a real movie director, make movies. I grew up in Italy, and my family at the time lived near a park, which was home to an open air cinema during the summer month. So every evening they would show a new movie. I was 10 years old, and for me that was paradise. Actually, it would have been paradise if any of us kids had the money for it. So, I mean, what did we do instead is at dusk, we would hide in the bushes surrounding the cinema. And then once the lights were off, we tried to sneak inside. And somehow, miraculously, we made it almost every time. And of course, later in life, I met again the owner of the cinema, and he told me that he had known about our little operation the whole time, and he just let us watch the movies anyway. So Joe,
in Cinema Paradiso, he becomes a movie director, not a life science communicator.
Yeah, similar story, different endings. So, Jaws, Alien, Star Wars, those were the titles at the time. I watched them all, and it was awesome. Until my own life took a different turn. My parents got divorced, and we had to move to a new home, which was far away from the park, from my friends, and from the movies, from the cinema. And you know how things happen. Life got serious. I got a PhD. I started working in biotech. I had a family. I had a mortgage. All of a sudden, I was a grown up, but I still felt this dream to make movies, to make my own stories. And which brings me to the day in New York. So I was there for business, and I had planned to attend a workshop by this Robert McKee. I don't know if you're familiar with the guy, Danny.
He is a screenwriter, teaches screenwriting.
That's exactly.
Story.
Yeah, and in the sector, he's considered one of the best of the best actually for screenwriting. And that day was a life-changing experience. McKee spoke for the whole day about how to write a story, story structures, and especially all the movie that I loved, the movies from my childhood. And he spoke about how the art and science of storytelling can be applied to bring value to anything, even and especially to a complex business like ours. So on that day after the workshop, I decided I would do something finally about this childhood dream, and I would dedicate the rest of my career to storytelling. I first practiced for a few years at Johnson and Johnson. I was working there for a long time in strategic communications, and then I founded my own company. And okay, I didn't get to become a Hollywood director, but it's pretty close. I get to work, create stories for some amazing entrepreneurs with fantastic ideas and technology, and to me, that's what my childhood dream was really all about.
Well, we're in the midst of a difficult financing environment right now. There's a lot of competition to get investors' attention. Complex science doesn't always lend itself to a short and easy pitch. What's the heavy lifting a story needs to do, and has the importance of this intensified in the current environment?
Oh, it's indeed a very difficult moment, as you say, Danny. Also for the biotech, and especially if you need funding right now. And many CEOs are finding it hard, very hard sometimes to get heard by investors to get their attention. And science and data are not enough, especially in the early phase of your interaction with VCs, with investors, when they need to decide whether something is worth their attention and their time. And this is where the story really makes a difference, because the story you pitch creates an emotional and logical connection to your mission in your audience. It will help investors understand what's at the heart of your business, and investors know that a good story is a powerful predictor of success. As they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
The importance of CEOs being able to craft and tell their story doesn't just matter from a fundraising perspective, but you make the case it matters for being able to develop partnerships, attract and retain, and motivate employees as well. Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. I know it's a lot, of course, but when you are the CEO, investors are just one of your audiences. Even if you're focusing on fundraising, funding is important, of course, but most biotech CEOs at a certain point will try to find partners to co-develop their drugs or their technology, or to license their product. So they're going to meet big pharma leaders, and when they meet those people, it's not going to be about just the technology. These guys want to understand whether your strategy and your vision and your values even align with those of their own company. They want to feel this match, that working with you is going to be mutually beneficial, and you need a story for that. Data and science will not be enough. And you mentioned employees, and we know that people are quitting their job at record levels these days. And I just read a McKinsey publication the other day that 2 out of 5 employees are considering leaving their job the next 3 to 6 months. Wow, that's incredible. So if you want to retain great people, if you want to attract great people, you're going to need an inspiring story for them. And not only for the scientists, also for the best business developers, the patent attorneys, and anybody who you need to join to have in your adventure to make your company a success and the world a healthier place.
In this short conversation, you've already said twice that data isn't enough, science isn't enough. Biopharma is very much a data-driven business. Why is compelling science and data not enough to attract investors?
So let me speak out of my personal experience. In my corporate career, I've been at the receiving end of many presentations by very promising entrepreneurs, scientists, startups, and they all had very sophisticated and complex science. And I'm a scientist myself. So the easiest way to say after such a pitch was, thank you very much. It was very interesting. Let's reconnect. Let's reconnect when you have more data, when you have more science, when you have a stronger IP, when those final results come in. Let's reconnect later. You get the point. Ouch. Nobody wants to hear that at the end of their pitch. And data and science are not enough. And every winning pitch needs certain ingredients, actually 4 ingredients, and they were described already more than 2,000 years ago by Aristotle. You need that, of course, but you need trust, emotional connection, and urgency. 4 elements. And of these 4, urgency is the most important in your pitch, in your story. And it's also the most challenging to create. And we see it every time we hear a CEO pitch. Investors see hundreds of pitches just like yours when you are the CEO. And why should they do anything about it? Now, why now? And if you go to the website of Sequoia Capital, some leaders in the investor world, they say, if you're coming to pitch your idea to us, to Sequoia, be prepared to answer this question: why now? So, very important.
You say people often mistakenly think of storytelling as marketing. You say a company's story is its strategy. What's the relationship between a company's story and its strategy?
To me, marketing is something we do afterwards. Now, we have made certain choices, certain strategic choices. We now have a strategy, we have a vision, we have a product. So now, how do we put it out there in the world in the most efficient way, in a way that will reach as many people as possible? So that is marketing, something you do afterwards. A story happens for me before. It's about making those strategic choices. Where is our place in the world as a company? What do we want to be known for? What are we not going to do because it's not part of our strategy? So in a way, when you build this story, you are working on your strategy. And if you cannot articulate your strategy clearly, that's an almost certain sign that you don't have a clear strategy.
You've already talked about Aristotle and Robert McKee. These are 2 masters of the structure of story. When you talk about stories from a life science company perspective, what do you mean about story, and why are those stories like novels and films and plays in terms of their structure?
Yeah. Have you read the book *Sapiens* by Harari?
No.
No. Okay, it's a great book, and in this book, Harari says that what makes us humans so successful is our ability to share stories. We share stories that, and millions of individuals will get them, will get excited about them, and will share them. We are the only species who can do that. And so take I don't know, a concept like take Harvard University. What is the story of Harvard University? When we say Harvard University, most of us will think, I don't know, hard work, success, elite, these kind of things. That is the story we have been telling each other about Harvard. But Harvard in reality is just a building, a series of buildings at a certain location in the US with a number of contracts in place to keep the thing running. So this is what the story of Harvard is. And it's the same for everything. The same is true for our nations, our religions, our institutions. Those are stories we created and we keep sharing. So Harari says that stories are really how we make sense of the world, how we understand the world. And guess what? The world includes also biotech companies. So they better have a very good story to share.
Some people may think of a PR company as the place responsible for crafting a story. You say it's actually the CEO's responsibility. Why is that?
Yeah, of course, a PR agency is very useful, especially with a mature company, large company. You need support for that. But there are two critical roles for the CEO when it comes to the company story, and those are not roles that you can outsource. So the first role is that of the CEO as the owner of the story, and Ben Horowitz, the legendary co-founder of Andreessen and Horowitz, once said that the company story is the company's strategy. And I say this often, I think. So if you make your story better, you make your strategy better. And when you are the CEO, strategy is your responsibility. You cannot delegate it to a PR agency. The second responsibility is that of the CEO as the chief storyteller of the company. So the one who is primarily responsible for sharing the company story with the world. As the CEO, the CEO is the person that the colleagues, partners, and investor will expect to hear the story from, especially investors, because they want to see the CEO in action. They know that this is an excellent way to assess leadership and communication skills. And it's also a very strong predictor of success. So this is another thing you cannot pay a PR agency to do for you when you are the CEO.
One of the critical pieces of advice you offer is that companies need to aim to change the world, not just pitch products. Why is that?
Again, this is based on real life. If we look around us in today's world, the most successful and most admired companies, the most inspiring entrepreneurs and leaders are not trying to sell us a product. There are so many products already out there, so many technologies, who cares? They seem to be on a mission to make the world a better place, thanks to their technology, thanks to their big idea product. So, of course, Steve Jobs and Apple come to mind. They are not there to sell computers. They want to unleash human creativity with tools that are easy to use and elegant as well. Elon Musk and Tesla, same thing. Not building better rockets, but dreaming of creating what is it called? The multi-planetary civilization. How cool is that? Wow. So that's a big story. That's a big vision, a big mission. And when I in my work with biotech CEOs, especially European, I must say, one objection I hear regularly is that how can I pitch something so big? How can I say I want to change the world? My product. I'm so far away from having a product on the market, and perhaps it will never reach the market. And the thing is, of course, that we know that you are not there, and it's not going to be easy. We know that, and we can live with it. But we need to hear a story to get excited. A story for me is like a bridge. We are in the present year, and we need to go to this future. And there is a big gap in between with a big river. And how do you take us there? You need a bridge for that. And this story, this bridge, allows us to experience today, what the world is gonna look like in the future, thanks to your technology.
We talked about the structure of a story. You talk about a 3-act structure. What is a 3-act structure for a biotech story?
There are many ways to organize a story, complex information, and including science. And this is true for a book, a movie, or a company presentation. But actually, there is one structure that is most used in storytelling because it's so damn effective. And this is what we refer to as the 3-act structure, because it has 3 acts, 3 parts. So Act 1 is typically the setup of the story, the introduction of the character. In every story, it's nothing important happens. It's once upon a time, the framing. Act 2 is the middle part, the shift, the surprise. Something happens, something unexpected, sometimes dramatic, and that changes the energy of the story. It forces the hero of the story to go into action. And this is the part we love. This is why we go to the movies. This shift, this struggle of the hero. So most of the story takes place in the second act. And finally, there's a third act, the solution of the struggle, the resolution of this situation, where the hero confronts the problem and may or may not solve it, but always learn something in the process. The hero is changed at the end of the story, and so are we, the audience. We learn something from movies, from books, from stories, and that changes us too. And so this is the structure, and it applies also to fundraising storytelling.
Stories have heroes. Who is the hero of a life science pitch?
Who is the hero of a life science pitch? Very important point, Danny. And I see so many CEOs and so many companies getting this wrong. And often the bigger the company, the more difficult it becomes to have the right hero for the story. So who should be the hero? The hero, by definition, is the character that is going to solve the problem, that is going to fix the situation. For instance, Kill Bill is one of my favorite movies. I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan. And in Kill Bill, the hero of Kill Bill is the bride. It's played by Uma Thurman. And she wakes up from a coma and realizes that her ex-boyfriend, ex-lover, Bill, has tried to kill her and has killed her family and her child. So Bill is bad. Bill is causing a lot of pain and a problem. And the bride is going to fix this. She's going to kill Bill. So this is the plot of the story of the movie, and the bride is the hero. And the interesting part is, and I don't know how you feel about it when you go to the movies, but when I watch a movie like Kill Bill or any other good action movie, I get very excited. My children get even more excited. So we feel like at that moment we are fighting. I feel like I'm fighting Bill myself. And, I don't look like Uma Thurman at all. And that's the thing with good stories. The audience identifies with the hero. They become the hero of the story. And that's what you should try to achieve also with your own company story. Don't make your company the hero, because you are not going to solve the problem yourself. You need an audience for that. You need investors who are going to invest in your company and solve the problem. You're going to need other companies that will license your technology and solve the problem. You're going to need doctors and hospitals buying your technology and help you solve the problem. So those are your audience is the hero of the company story, always.
What advice would you offer to a CEO putting together their story and testing whether it's coherent and compelling?
I have an effective but perhaps challenging exercise to suggest to these CEOs. I'd say pick 5 people you trust and ask them individually this question. If you were to introduce my company to a colleague, what would you say in one sentence? And have them write it in an email. So choose 5 people with different viewpoints and different people. For instance, you could choose a member of a leadership team, or an employee, perhaps a scientist, or an investor who has already invested in you, a fellow CEO, an advisor, 5 different people. Then write down these very short stories about your company and add your own. And perhaps you can copy your own story from the first slide of your pitch deck or from the landing page of your website. And then ask yourself, what do I see? What are these stories the same? Are they different? Is there a common theme emerging? And if not, try to improve it. And come back to, I suggest to come back to do this exercise regularly every few weeks and see how your story is evolving and how are you succeeding in making sure that people really get it consistently.
Your book is written for CEOs, but is there something you think investors can take away from it?
Good question. And actually, I had many investors read it. And I would say my book will help investors give better feedback when they hear a pitch, after they hear a pitch, actionable feedback. Because there is one thing that VCs or investors in general sometimes find challenging, especially if they decided not to invest in a company, and that is putting into words what they realized, what they felt when they heard a pitch. Structuring their feedback in a way that is going to be useful for the presenter. And one of the VCs who read my book made the following comment, and I'm just reading from the book. As a life sciences VC, I know what I'm looking for, but expressing that to the presenting CEOs with my words is another thing altogether. So I'd say VCs want to give better feedback, read my book.
Giuseppe Marzio, founder of the communications agency Chiaro and author of Winners Have a Story, How CEOs Can Turn Complex Science and Technology into Irresistible Fundraising Pitches. Giuseppe, thanks so much for your time today.
Danny, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. The Bio Report is a production of the Levine Media Group. To automatically download this podcast each week, subscribe to our RSS feed or through iTunes or other podcast manager. To join our mailing list, go to levinemediagroup.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line or are interested in sponsoring this podcast, send email to danny@levinemediagroup.com. Special thanks to Jonah Levine, who composed our theme music, and the Jonah Levine Collective, which performs it.